Did they look small beside me, or?
I feel tiny. Even you're shrinking down a bit. You're like, oh my god.
Maybe it's like the aura.
It's the aura. I think it's what it is.
The coach and the
Dad
students.
looks small.
Good. Now we're talking. Welcome to the show.
No,
Welcome to the show.
move forward.
Good, what's it?
Yeah, that.
Is that cool?
Yeah.
Alright, awesome. We'll,
Too laid back.
it's a very laid back show.
I've been watching.
I've heard. So I've
I've
heard.
been watching.
So I had an introduction plan.
Yeah, do
I
it.
can do. You want me to do the introduction, then you can do the questions.
Go for it.
Welcome back to another episode of the Murph Mitise show.
I've got a big fat drum, big fat drum. I've got a big fat drum, pounding so bad.
A very special show today. We do have Superfan in the building. Based in Sydney, has watched every show. Does send us critiques sometimes. Sort of how to present ourselves and whatnot. So I've gone with the singlet today. Wide-bodied singlets, a little bit bigger.
Is it working?
Not really. Got a bit of a beach time yesterday, tan up, particularly for this one. So welcome back. No, it is a very special show. We do have, I'll let you do the introduction.
Hi, my name is Donal Carr. Welcome
Wait,
to
is it Donal or Donald?
Donal.
It's Donald.
Don't associate me with Donald.
No D.
There's
There are
no
enough
D.
Donalds in the world.
So we're with Donal Carr. Donal was brought up in our very first episode.
It was the first one.
It was the first one. If you flip back to that one, you can check that out. And then I think, you've got threads through every episode, I swear.
There's something, is it mentioned
In somewhere. So Donal is our mutual mentor, Murph and I, from way back in the day. Way back in the day. We're talking 15, 20,
Wow.
20 no,
Yeah.
12?
2009.
Yeah,
we
2009, so we're looking at 11 years.
started. 11 years.
11 years?
And
10
look,
years.
look where you've
So
come.
10 years. 10 years, I can't even do a maths at the moment. So Donal used to come around to Fitness First and present lectures on everything from weight loss management through to strength training, through to exercises. I think we talked about the first ever lecture that I did was a squat seminar. When I came into the squat seminar, fresh young trainer, knew how to train, and then 3 hours later left and didn't want to train anyone ever again.
Just get to see a client.
So that's where I started there. So I think I think we should start with, what is your background then? Like,
Okay. Well, obviously I'm Irish, and was always into sports. I was always active as a young guy. I played a lot of different sports. My dad played amateur football, Gaelic football for Dublin, and he was always very sporty. So he was always kicking the ball with us, and we played the normal things like soccer and rugby and Gaelic. And I didn't play a lot of basketball though when I was growing up. My brother did, and I played a lot of one-on-one out in the front yard with him. But he's 6'10", so I stopped playing.
You got big.
Yeah, and he's my younger brother, so I'm the older brother. He's supposed to be whipping his ass, but that didn't happen. So yeah, I got into rugby and I got into boxing. I was Dublin boxing champ, under 16s boxing champ when I was there. And I really loved working out, and my coaches were saying, like, you need to put on a bit of meat. You're a skinny young guy, you need to beef up a little
they
bit.
still
So-
tell me that.
Yeah, sticks with you, follows you around like a bad smell. But I got training with weights and dumbbells, and that was introduced when I was about 13. I started using dumbbells and just kid in the room doing your biceps and your chest and your flies and build up all the important muscles.
We all started there.
Yeah, the t-shirt muscles, the beach workout, and then after I left school, I went to accountancy college, and then kind of didn't really rock my boat, so I ended up spending more time in the gym rather than lectures. So I said, well, maybe I should make this my career, and so that's what I did. I went off and did a university gig in Ireland for 2 years, got a certificate there, and then I started getting into kind of looking at what else is out there, and I started looking at some of the courses in America, started looking at some of the courses in Europe, started getting to conventions, and then started to kind of knew what I was doing about 2 or 3 years into the industry. The first 2 or 3 years, I don't know how I didn't kill someone. What they teach you and what they give you at the beginning is like, there's your little L plate, now go off and play.
Yeah.
And you get experience, and it's only by the grace of God that I didn't kill someone or injure someone. And maybe I did, I just don't know about it. But you know what?
It's best not to know.
Yeah, the knowledge I have now. I mean, like, I remember going to workshops, and I think you said it on one of the first things, like, your mind gets blown, and you're like, oh my God, I'm not good enough. And I ended up kind of walking out of the lecture going like, geez, I want to be like that guy. I want to have an understanding of the body and how the body moves and how to program and understand what's going on with my client. They didn't teach me that in college. They didn't give me that in the book. I mean, I make the joke now, I've got one book that when I graduated in 1991, I've only got one book left on my shelf that's actually current, that's up to date. The rest of them have been thrown out because they've been obsolete, disproved.
Oh,
textbooks from uni. There's only one book left.
What is that book?
It's a kinesiology book. I can't remember the name of it because I don't use it too much, but it's a red kinesiology book. It's still in my bookshelf at home. It's the only book that's lasted the test of time because those principles don't change. The tools and the techniques and the modern advances and information changes and technology changes, but the principles that were in that book stays the same. Even anatomy stuff, if you look at Gray's Anatomy going back as far as 2000 or 1903, and you go into the 20s, the 40s, the 60s, the editions, they started to water down and drop things out. So stuff that's in the early anatomy books are not in the modern anatomy books. And you ask why? Because they think it's too complex. It's not the same in everybody else's body. It's unique. So my background is, got into fitness training and then got into strength conditioning, NSCA, National Strength Conditioning Association, and then I started getting injured clients, and that's when I got into the Czech stuff. And I'm a Czech faculty member and a Czech practitioner, so I spent 5 years after I'd been about 10 years in the industry working with Olympic athletes and pro athletes. I went like, geez, I need more information and knowledge, and I scooted around. I decided that I got offered to go back to do physio, but I said, I'm not going to go back to college. I want to stay working in the industry, keep earning, keep learning.
Still in Ireland?
Still in Ireland.
Okay.
And then all the courses for the Czech stuff was in England or America. And that's when I kind of got out of my little fishbowl and started to see that there's a big opportunity there. And then I came over here to Australia in 97, 98 and played a bit of rugby over here, based myself in Sydney. And then that's where I met my wife, and I went to South Africa, worked there a little bit, and back to Europe, worked over there, had our own business there. I've had teams of up to 8, 10 personal trainers working for me at some stages. And then, emigrated to Australia in 2003. Fitness First hired me straight away and put me in a club, and then I became the PT training development manager. And that's when I opened up Adelaide, and we kind of trained in all the trainers, and then for 7 years just went on a kind of lecturing circuit. So I saw you guys every month. You were some of the guys that actually wanted to invest and wanted to grow and keep. Your guys are still in the industry. I bet you some of those guys that came to those workshops are not there. But you guys also did that mentorship program. Remember the 6-month mentorship program with me? So you guys got a good inoculation of my stuff. So we kept you. I call myself a lifer. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. This is not a transient hobby or anything. This, I'm in it for the long run. This is it. So I think you guys are pretty much the same. You've got the same mentality and you've got the same work ethic, and it's great to see you guys get to where you are now. It's been fun to watch where you're both going. It's been good.
Very cool.
So that's my background.
Okay, fantastic. So my question on that then, before you go to the Czech stuff, right, and then took that path, you were saying you would go to workshops or conferences or whatnot. Yep. Who would you say now that you can like, here's the guys that I wanted to learn from at that time?
There were some of the strength coaches and some of the guys that were around Ireland at the time, some of the successful personal trainers. We had a guy, Mark Cunningham, who was my lecturer, and he was an anomaly for Ireland because he was an international presenter. There was no real other guys that had made it on the international circuit. And I was lucky enough to mentor under him for a couple of weeks and get to work with him and his wife and see how he did things. But he also lectured in Trinity College, which is the big medical college in Ireland. And he taught to the physios and the medical team as well. And he worked with the Olympic councils as well. So he was a guy that really changed the shape of how I look at things. And he was already getting into this nutritional stuff, and there's mental emotional stuff, and there's gut stuff. And this was, we're way back in the early 90s, which was unheard of. And he was a bit of a freak, but he was very much Eastern philosophy. I think he was proficient in about 4 or 5 different martial arts. And he also worked as a security consultant too. He was a very smart guy, but he was very well traveled, and he loved solving problems, and I love solving problems. I find every client's like, great, new puzzle to work out. What are we gonna find here, right? So they're the kind of things that I didn't like. I went to physio workshops. I went to Nike, came out and did a workshop. Reebok came out and did a workshop, but they were all kind of like promotional stuff. It wasn't a lot of content. It was kind of bells and whistles, and you got this guy from Nike Town, he shows you this, and you get a free t-shirt, but you didn't get any substance, he didn't answer the questions of why this is happening. And it just says, follow this format, do A, B, C with your client. Well, my client is a B, E, F, G, not an A, B, C. So they don't work with that format. And anything that fits outside the little square round peg thing, it just didn't work. So I had to kind of learn from people that were lateral thinkers, critical thinkers, problem solvers. So I went away from a lot of the stuff that was on. I was doing ACE, ACSM, Michael Clark stuff. Got into some of the American presenters that were kind of like Juan Carlos Santana, Gary Gray, Chuck Wolf, Greg Roscoff's MAT I found really interesting for a while. I kind of brought myself away. I got heavily into the Czech stuff for a while. And then I went into Gary Gray's work and some of the American presenters' work and kind of got distracted for a while, but then came back and found out that everything that was appearing in their work was already present in Paul's manuals in the Czech program. So that to me was kind of like, okay, get back on the path, stay true, and finish what you started. And that's what I did then for the next 2 years and finished off my Czech teaching.
So you're level 5.
Level 4 practitioner, which is
practitioner.
and Czech faculty. Yeah.
Yep.
So I've done everything. Yeah.
Done,
So
yep.
and as you know, I teach that stuff. You've done some Czech stuff.
Yep.
So yeah.
All right. I think Murph had a question.
I have a question.
It's been waiting. It's been waiting.
It's probably one of the most talked about topics we've spoken about in almost every single episode so far.
It's not Tim Grover though.
It's not Tim Grover. Besides him.
Relentless.
Exactly.
Actually,
Closer. I'm a closer. Not finished.
Josh is actually reading Tim Grover's book right now.
Yeah.
Donal.
What do you think?
Pretty good. Yeah.
Pretty good.
Pretty good. Mate.
It's
Mate.
very
And
good.
we got it from this show. So
This
thank
show.
you.
Oh, wow.
There you go. We
Fantastic.
do listen.
We have Donal's son here off camera as well.
We're not talking to each
We're
other.
just talking to a wall. Promotional. Anyway.
So other than the Tim Grover Relentless book, it's technique. We talk about technique a lot.
Yes.
Josh and I are very, I guess, nuts, you like, with technique. We like to make sure our clients are educated and perform good technique all the time. If you can't do it, you've got to digress or modify and change it. One of the biggest ones is the deadlift, which is probably one of the more technical lifts there are, without going into other cleans and the snatch and all those upper Olympic lifts, because of that forward flexion, that bending motion, and trying to maintain that neutral spine for the lower back especially. Do you allow any sort of flattening or what's the word for it? Posterior tilt in the hips, in the pelvis, in a deadlift, no matter how heavy the weight?
And if so, when?
And how much?
And how much?
Cool. The answer is yes. I do allow that to move, but that's dependent on their fascial conditioning and their work hardening. So if I've got a novice lifter, not at all.
And what's in the novice, just for
Someone that's under 1 year of supervision by a fitness professional or a strength coach. So if you've only lifted weights for a year, you're still a novice. If you lifted for 2 years, you're intermediate, 2 to 3 years. Anything above 3 years, you're getting into advanced. And I mean with proper technique under supervision and a balanced program.
Yep.
Someone that just goes off to their local gym and reads Men's Health and does their own workouts and stuff like that, they could be anomalies in their technique. They could have worked the muscle, but they may not have worked the joint, the connective tissue in the right way. So there is that lumbar kyphosis. So you've got lumbar lordosis, the normal curvature, and when it goes out of that curve, it goes into kyphosis. So we're talking about when you go into a deadlift, you're supposed to keep that neutral curve. Well, there's a lot of lifters out there that will use the ligamentation and the fascial component to stretch to help the recoil with the muscles as well.
so elastic energy?
That's right, the
Yep.
elastic potential that's built up in the muscle
Yep.
and the fascia. Now, if you eat unfortunate poor food and you don't have the right collagen and gelatin and you haven't work hardened the tissue, so you haven't given enough stimulus to grow and downlay, then I would not recommend you round out or lengthen or use that fascial component because you haven't strengthened up. If you do any research into the Western Bloc, or sorry, the Eastern Bloc communities and what they did in the Bulgarian and the Yugoslavian, the Russian, they would spend 3 to 5 years with their young lifters with dowel rods and bars doing work hardening exercises and basic conditioning before they're allowed to do those explosive lifts, before they're allowed to put maximal pressure, 1 RM max testing on them. So it's really important to do it. How much conditioning they've done will allow me to actually start to go out of a neutral curvature. But I would still say that some people, their posture in their pelvic tilt, the lumbar curve, and their anatomy, if that's not right, I won't let them do that. If they've had pre-existing disc injuries, they may have an undiagnosed disc that you don't know about, and allowing someone to do that kind of connective tissue loading might actually kind of re-flare up an old injury or give them an injury that they didn't know that they were managing until you did something a little bit too much for the system. So it's kind of a complex answer because it depends on the person that's in front of you.
Yeah.
But the general rule would be, yes, I will allow the lumbar curve to go into a kyphotic position. I will allow their ligamentation and fascial system to load if they've been eating good food and had good raw material and have done the hard yards and have put the work in the gym first to strengthen up the connective tissue. If there's anything in regards to digestive issues or core not working, I won't.
Because there's nerve innervation from the lower back, lumbar spine to which organs?
All the organs really in the body innervate to the spine. So, but you have things like the small intestine, the large intestine, the colon, ascending, descending, transcending. You got cecum, you got liver, and goes more to the thoracic area. So if you're holding a bar, you got pancreas, you got your lung pleura that holds tension, or if any of those organs gets taxed or are stressed, what the body will do, it will slow down the nerve inhibition to the muscle and hijack that energy to heal that organ. That's called a viscerosomatic reflex.
Yep.
So a viscerosomatic reflex is down-regulating the nervous tone that goes to the muscle and giving that energy to that organ to heal it.
To repair. Yep.
So if you do have a gut issue, if eating a food that gives you something, or there's some kind of abdominal dysbiosis or a microbiome gut issue, then they're not going to be able to get maximum contraction through the abdominal wall to stabilize, and therefore you're going to have problems if you go to push the system.
And what about even females in their period cycle?
I was about to say, I was explaining a little bit of the systematic work to some of you over there.
How much time do we have?
Mate, we got like 3 minutes. No.
All right,
I was explaining about that the other
you've
day.
got a menstrual cycle, and you've got the first week, second, they ovulate, third week, fourth week. Generally, you have estrogen is high at the start, it drops down, progesterone comes up when they ovulate to progest, to gestate, and then just before they ovulate, you have the estrogen ramps back up again. So again, that 2 or 3 days before they before they go into the menstrual cycle, and the 2 or 3 days afterwards, I do not do explosive, do not do heavy lifts.
And because of that inhibition?
Because estrogen goes up and inflammation goes up, which down-regulates the muscle tone.
Yep.
So there's been lots of work like El Nigar or El Nigar, and he did work back in the 80s on showed that 64% of people females that are going through a menstrual cycle will have lower back, abdominal cramping, and that kind of stuff. So if that's happening, they're the ones that you wouldn't want to push. There may be some anomalies out there. There's always curveballs, and everybody doesn't fit into a nice little kind of position. So that I've had females that don't have any issues with that. They're healthy females. You shouldn't have PMS if you're a female. That's something that is not natural. It's normal for most people these days, but it's not natural.
Yep.
A healthy female's body will not go through PMS. They will not have that inflammation. They will not have that bloating. But if you have a client that has that, I would be very careful about structural loading on those days. I'd be very careful about power and speed those days. I'd be very careful about plyometrics those days, and even very careful about dynamic stretching or movement, because all ligaments have estrogen receptors. Estrogen receptors and estrogen soften up the connective tissue. So those 2 or 3 days prior to your menstrual cycle or after your menstrual cycle, you shouldn't be working on maximum 1RMs or plyometrics. That's the time to do skill drills. That's the time to do recovery. That's the time to do endurance bouts that are on supportive machines. And
so do more volume rather than
exactly volume
intensity.
training. Yeah. And I mean, your body's not going to repair so much because the uterus is sloughing and you're leaving blood and the iron levels go down. So it's important to have nutrition. But yeah, when I work with female athletes, it's very different to how we work with a guy. A female athlete, you really need to know what you're doing. A male athlete, shit, you can bump him and grind him and push him around. He's like a dump truck. He just gets a couple of scrapes and bruises and it's fine. Can't do that with a female's body.
Cannot bump and grind female athletes. Alright?
You heard it from them.
Hashtag bump and grind. And so for my girls out there, that should now give you a little bit more understanding as to why we kind of change things around, and I kind of ask you about cycles. I don't go into that depth, and I won't. But I feel that I don't need to know that much. But then you don't understand why in the inhibition.
I think when they feel the difference and they understand, the benefit of that. And we know that certain females that hang around together, they get in the same menstrual cycle, the same rhythm. So it's easier with a team sometimes to kind of work that out. But you'll always have
You have 1 week of the block, which is a little bit different.
yeah, and that's all.
Session's different today.
So that's why it's that's why it's very hard to train teams.
Yeah.
It's very hard to get it. But if you can, section the backs, the midfielders, and the strikers and the forwards together, you can sometimes change the program around based on their needs. But then you have those individual needs based on physiology that they're going through the menstrual cycle, and this girl is second, third week in, and first week after the menstrual cycle, the 2-3 weeks, that's when maximum testosterone is in the females. That's when they put on the biggest amount of muscle and get the biggest gains in their training. So that's the time you want to push them hard.
Yeah.
So we went away from the original question, but very
We tangentialised again.
Tangentialised. Josh makes up words, so
Okay.
Donal knows, I've seen them all, super fan.
So to come back to the original with the deadlift and the technique, you do allow some sort of kyphosis in the lumbar spine, provided that they're an actual advanced
3 years of
3
weightlifting.
years.
Of connective tissue is made out of good organic strong material.
Yep.
They haven't been eating Krispy Kreme donuts and Macca's and KFC. They've
Yep.
been eating real food, organic, wholesome food. They've had good collagen. They've had good absorption. They don't have digestive issues. Their guts working. Their core's working. Now, sure.
Now we're good. And so do you then program it or promote it? So if they're
I would
continuously
program it.
using low
I would program.
doses,
I would allow them to go through okay, today we're going to do 20 reps. And we're actually going to round the spine and load the ligament
so
system.
20 reps, you prefer high volume rather than intensity for that?
Yes. And then when I get into strength training, then we'd say, okay, now next week, now we're going into a different phase, and this is where we're going to do a 1 to 4 rep, and you're just going to lift the bar wherever way you can, and then we're going to keep a lower doses, and we've already got them off a phase.
Because you've got to train the
different
system.
fiber types. Yeah, so we can't just overload the system all the time. Otherwise, people get into too much hyperlordotic, and they end up getting end plate contraction, especially these people that stand up and tuck their pelvis and lean back, and the end plate with the connective tissue and the structure of the base of the vertebrae start pushing against each other, or they crack facet joints. They get spondylolisthesis, spondylosis, which is cracking or stress fracture of the spine, and that's something that's obviously caused by poor conditioning too, and not having this connective tissue strong.
That's why we surf that curve of like 1-4, and then you obviously move up to the high reps, low reps.
To train more the ligamentous system.
Train more
go back
ligamentous
to muscular.
and move back down.
Yeah.
So even in those high intensity 3 to 4 rep range,
Yep.
would you allow the
Ooh, okay.
Depends.
so no power or a strength? I know power is still 60%, but it's explosive, and the strength is those real lower high intensity.
Are
lower
we
reps, high
doing a
intensity.
competition? If we're doing a competition or we're doing 1RM, I just lift that bar whatever way you can.
Okay, because they're trained for it, they're
Exactly.
ready for that.
Exactly.
Let's
and
say
the top lifters do that. If you watch strongman competitions and so on, they don't lift with a perfect lordotic curvature because
No.
they spend 5, 10, 15 years sometimes as strongmen developing that fascia and connective tissue, and
That's
therefore they
complicated.
have a wire that can actually stretch and
Yep.
pull back. Elastic tissue, when I was taught in the 90s when I graduated, we're told that they don't move. Now we know that they have motor units in it. If you go through any of Dr. Guy Voyer's work on how fascia integrates and how it moves and how it actually adapts and the fibrils move out, there's a great YouTube clip called Strolling Under the Skin, and it goes through with otoscopic kind of video, and you actually see the fibrils when you get it cut, how they branch out and pull back together, and how they change, and how it's all collagen and water, and that has to be adapted over a period of time. The ground substance, the ground matrix, the extracellular matrix pulls in all this nutrients and minerals in and builds that fascia. But if you don't have good connective tissue, you will not be able to get force production. And
Yep.
I'm very careful about allowing my clients to get into bad technical positions.
Yep.
So even what you think would be a lot, I would only go to neutral. So, from neutral to a flat. Never get to a convex curve.
This is for a non-competitive.
For anybody.
Anybody.
Anybody. I don't allow anybody to go by that neutral. So Stuart McGill, you've heard of Ultimate Back Fitness, Stuart McGill. So he did arthroscopic video analysis as well. He put gauge needles in, and he found that when people blew their back out, it was only when they went past that flat position. So you can go out of neutral and you can bend the spine, but once it goes past that flat position, that's when the injuries occurred.
Yep.
If you look at the orientation of the lumbar vertebrae, they're wedged, and when you go that way, now they're opening up. But now that's a straight line. Where it naturally sits in a curve,
Yep.
the vertebrae system occur. But when it straightens out, it goes this way, which now puts more pressure on the connective tissue in between the vertebrae and the fascia and the long ligaments of the spine, the longitudinal ligaments of the spine, and they will then, that's working them to be lax. So you're setting yourself up for potential weakness or damage long term if you do that.
So, let me get this clear now, because I think I'm confused. When I say posterior tilt, I mean into like a full, where there's a rounding.
No.
So you're saying still none of that?
No. I won't allow the posterior tilt to tuck under in a lift.
Cool. Now
The way I think about it, this is how if I teach it. If you're lordotic, that's fine. You've got elastic tension. You go to neutral, you got maximal elastic tension. As soon as you go rounding from that,
Now
this
we're
way
damaging structure.
you damage your structure because you've got tension now pulling in these ends,
Yes.
pulling together, rather than now maximal and then back this way.
So all those arguments to say the other way is actually okay, and it's more of like an advanced lift.
They're quite entitled to their opinion, and good luck with them. And you know,
That's probably the better way to put it. Good luck with them.
Welcome back to part 2B,
Timer.
not part 2 of the Donal Carr special. We now also have Donal Carr Jr., Josh Carr. Give us a little bit of introduction for yourself for the people out there.
16 years old, born in Dublin. He's my dad. Play basketball. I'm in the SPP for the state squad, New South Wales. I play for Manly in Sydney. And yeah.
What
Quite
are you
the
here for?
talker as well.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Rule it out.
Rule out.
What are you here from Adelaide for?
Just to get some work experience and see what the lifestyle of an NBL player is like.
Got some NBA.
What's that?
Yeah, so you've had some NBA guys.
Bit of NBA guys.
Yeah.
couple.
Yeah, that's
That's about it. So we've heard a lot about you, like almost every presentation, there will be little snippets of like Donald's life, and so you guys will be mentioned, Ryan will be mentioned, Kathy will be mentioned in throughout. My question always was like these poor kids, right? I'm coming into this like this, and then this guy's just bashing my brains all this nutrition, training, whatever. What was it like growing up? Was Dad technique specific when you're playing, or judgmental, or picky?
well,
Say
yeah.
the right thing.
He always criticizes me, but like for the better. Like I take it as, you don't know the game. You don't know basketball, but he knows what the body does, how the body moves. So, like, it was different growing up. Like, but like I don't know. Like I don't know anything different.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what was going on. So
Does he ever let you relax? Like,
Yeah.
Dad, I'm at McDonald's. No. It was like, you know what?
Definitely no.
Definitely no.
yeah, well,
I'll word it another way. You probably see your mates at school doing what they do with their parents.
Yeah.
Are you like, that's bad, I'm going to do what I do, what I've been taught? Or, you know what, I wish I could just sometimes join them on their little ventures to fast food?
well, so I see the kids at school and like you look at them and you'd be like, no, I don't want to look like that.
Cool.
So that's why I act like I do. And
Because I've always thought like since day one when Donald talked about you guys, I was like, these kids are superhuman, right? They're gonna be growing up, and none of us in this room or in this fucking state have any competition anymore. Like we're just make us slaves basically. the ideas I always had.
Stand up and let's see.
Yeah, these guys are animal. How tall are you?
6'4".
6'4". Right, I'm
16 years
6'1", if that. On a good day with heels on.
We're gonna put you guys in the gym and see who's stronger.
Yes, and that'd be cool. So have you done your like training wise? Do you do gym training?
Well, I've more started getting into it like this year.
Mm-hmm.
Before I only did little stuff, messed around in the gym, like
Probably once a week with me, sometimes in the gym at the weekends, or we'd make a little circuit, or we'd do some stuff, or
Growing up.
supplemental exercise.
yeah.
Yep.
I didn't do a lot of heavy lifting and compressing the spine or compound movements. Or so Ivan was compound movements, very little isolation movements. But yeah, he's been learning how to lift, and you know, he goes to the gym in his school, and you know, he sees what's going on with certain stuff with trainers and clients and stuff like that. He can actually now see what's.
Do you outlift everyone? Do people like, all your classmates like, damn, Josh, you're strong?
Well,
Or the
kind
girls
of
like,
The girls.
like what I look like people get surprised, like.
Because there's not a lot, you know, there's like a bulky.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
But like, I know how to live.
Do
Decent.
Called technique, right?
Yeah.
What about when they were growing up? This is the next level of that, right? So basic exercises. My interest always went to infant development.
Yeah.
And always into getting to cool patterns and moving out and taking people back to that and pushing through. When you just had them, Kathy just had the babies, and they're like, let's say you're like 6 months old. Did you ever look at them and be like, God damn, I gotta fix this shit?
Yeah,
right?
we did.
And how did you do that?
Okay, so I did this with him.
Mm-hmm.
When Ryan was born, unfortunately, I hadn't studied Richard Schmidt motor learning and development.
That's what I was going to talk
And
about.
Richard Schmidt talks about palpitation and building neurological pathways.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a window of opportunity between when they're about 6 months old, 18 months old, when the nerves all myelinate down the sheets. So what happened was, I was reading this and I'd be like, cool, I've got a son that's 6 months old, Josh. So I went over to Josh and you grab his hand when he's in the, and you rub the hands and palpitate and activate. And it creates stronger pathways. And I always remember a friend of mine who's another fitness professional over in her house, and he was throwing a ball and Josh picked it with his right hand and threw it at him, and he threw it back and Josh caught it with his left hand and threw it back with his left hand, and my friend was like, holy shit, he's ambidextrous. I said, no, I made him that way. And it was just kind of like, I knew what I was doing. I was downlaying the fiber optic.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
that's kind of, the body needed the stimulus to do that. So yes, I did experiment on Josh, and the experiment is still going. We'll find out in the next 2 years what the result is. But there's a lot of stuff that I've used that even some of my athletes wouldn't have got to. So I do a lot of body work on Josh and release techniques on Josh that I wouldn't do on general public, because I'm practicing and I don't want to kind of damage anything or do anything.
They can make another Josh. they can't make another someone else, Kathy.
I know.
Josh wants to his dad.
Yes.
No, but I'm even more cautious on my son, and if it works on my own family and myself, then I'll try, and I wouldn't mind then giving it to someone else.
Yeah.
But until I've proven that I know and it works and so on, and a lot of the stuff that we've used a huge amount of different stuff to work on, like injuries. Josh twisted his ankle a while back ago, rehab tricks and ice baths, and all the different tools and stuff that we talk about. And I get to see how that works. His volume of training now that he's gone to the New South Wales development squads, being down here with the guys working, you get to see stuff. You see the differences in how your body repairs and so on. So yeah, I mean it's great fun. So yeah, I've had some fun with that, and exercise wise as well. I mean, I did a lot of exercise and training when I was younger, and trying to make sure that I don't repeat any mistakes that I made in Josh's sporting career or life, or Ryan's as well. So yeah.
And how would you then go explain the? I don't tend to explain why we do cool patterns with mine. So just cool, adjust, do that.
Infant development patterns all come from as we start to learn to adapt to our environment. So the environment we put our children in dictates the learning capacity. So if there's no impetus or there's no encouragement to move to get a bottle or to get a toy or to do something, there's no encouragement for them to move. So if you put them in a little cage, if you put them in a little seat that holds them there, there's no real reason for them to go explore and so on. So getting them out and moving and crawling when you're on your belly, first you become navel radiation, which is the first where you start to learn to wriggle on your back. In the womb, you're what we call in utero, which is all rotation. You're in a fluid, so you're moving around in the placenta, in the sac, and everything like that. So you're in a fluid. But when you come out, the first nerves that myelinate from the middle come out. So the body starts to learn how to like a wave, like a bit like a caterpillar, move in their spine, and they wriggle. I mean, we used to put the kids down for bed, and you come in 2 or 3 hours later, and they're up the other end of the bed, but you've been looking at them all day on the floor, they haven't moved an inch. It's like, how's that working? Like, what's
Just
happening?
sort of throwing balls against the wall, 3 months
Yeah.
old.
Jumping, doing cartwheels,
Yeah.
It would, my mind would like, how does that work? So the body has this natural wave of movement, and then you get into the baby looks and turns and rolls over onto their tummy, they start to lift, and at that stage they start to develop the curvatures in the spine, because all children are born with a C curve. So as they start to develop the curvatures in the lordosis we were talking about, or the kyphosis, that enables rotation and movement. But if they miss a stage of infant development, they miss out on that connective tissue being built. If they don't have the right positions when they're crawling on their elbows and their hip, These are the points that build up connective tissue, and they stimulate motor control, sequencing of muscles. They learn how to get, slings working. When they then come up onto their hands and their feet, they learn how to get hand-eye coordination as they crawl. Their head comes up, they start to develop the cervical curve. Then they crawl over, grab something on, which is recreational reach. So they start to develop the pull pattern in their arm. They come into a lunge, they come into a stand, and then eventually get to gait or walking. So that's usually a 12-month process. If there's a gap in that process, there will be a problem with their squat, their lunge, their deadlift, their bend, their squat, twist, or gait. One of the 7 primary patterns.
I was going to say, it can manifest later. And you
Yes,
can
because the movement structures, if you don't go to homologous, which is a pattern where you go up onto your hands and your knees, if you don't develop that or don't spend time with that as a child, your squat pattern will be affected, because that's what the squat pattern is, bending and hinging between the hips, the lower extremities and the upper extremities, pushing and pulling.
Why would there be a gap?
Because of infant development loss. There'd be no stimulus. They hadn't worked hard, they hadn't developed it. It's a bit like saying the original coding, the original software that runs that computer was downlaid in the infant development process.
Yep.
And then they tried to learn motor engrams that were more specific, so they tried to upgrade with these techniques.
Yep.
But if the original software, the original language that the body's using was faulty in the first place, or didn't put the right coding in, you're already working off a rocky foundation.
Foundations, yeah. So when I mean, why would there be a gap? Is it more parents have gone, let's take them from crawling and put him on those stand-up bounces?
Oh yeah, most definitely, yes.
Or is it something else? Yeah.
The bounces get
I
me
put that in
too.
there because I've heard Donal talk about it, so I'm going to bring it up again.
Yeah.
But like, is there other things besides that?
Yeah.
So you talk about that, but is there other things along the path
Totally.
that has made them skip gaps?
So allowing children sit in different postures, or allow them to continue to use faulty movement.
When you say allow, obviously if they do on their own, that's
well, the parents don't know.
Yep.
Right, so most people don't have the knowledge base to understand that your child is moving the wrong way biomechanically. They're using the joint or the limbs. Now most children will, it's natural, they'll work this out by just kind of like inherited, like the way a deer hops up and nobody taught a deer how to walk. It just, in the next couple of hours it starts walking, and if it doesn't, it dies. So with humans there's a lot more room for error, and it's built up over a long period of time. And because we're bipedal, we're not quadruped, there's a lot more stress and there's a lot more onus on getting those systems together. You're a bag of bones held up by wires. If you don't tighten the wires up before you stand up, you'll never coordinate how that works. But if they miss a stage, or someone sits and they only have their toes that touch the ground and don't have the heel, they don't work hard in the Achilles. They don't work hard in the plantar fascia. They don't get that explosive reaction later on in life, because they don't have the joint in the talocrural joint or the ankle or the calcaneus working, because they were never stimulated. So when you're growing in those earlier years and earlier months, you have to put your body in a position where it stimulates the growth in the downlay of cartilage. So if you don't oscillate the joint to its full range of motion, your body has no impetus to downlay cartilage over that articulating surface.
Is that the responsibility of the parent to give them things to do, to put them into that?
Get in the territory.
Yeah. Or is that we just stand back and look at it? I'm not saying we, and I'm not parent. Do we stand back and look at them and go, okay, they're going to figure it out. They're going to roll onto their stomach when they're ready, or their back when they're ready. They're going to get up when they're ready. Or do we go, here's a stool, now let's see what they do. Or here's that and here's this, and they go, let's see them.
Well, I think having children allowed to play and move and not be afraid of them going over to a cupboard and pulling stuff, and that's why people are put in pens, or because the parents have to do stuff and have busy life. So instead of, I hate to say this, but I'm going to rock
the boat. Do it. Say it.
You're going to have parents that shouldn't be parents, that don't know how to parent,
Yeah.
and are too busy running their life of Instagram or whatever to actually parent and be with them. And I don't know who they are. I mean, that's,
Donal's like, I don't know anyone. I'm not naming names.
I'm not looking at anyone.
Josh is smiling.
But
I'm not sure what that's about.
there could be family members. But, it's all about, for me, people are doing the best they can. I never got a manual on how to be a dad. It was just, I learned by my mistakes, and hopefully I don't screw it up too much.
Hang on, not Ryan, right? The older one.
No.
I hadn't read all the stuff up with him. He was his name. Josh is the golden
Well,
kid.
Josh is the one that's here.
Ryan is a very good actor and a very good sportsman too, but he's he's got different attributes.
Yes.
We all have different skill sets, and Josh has had a skill set for basketball and a body for it, and a willingness to train, and the ability to do that. And Ryan practices and does a lot of work on his acting and other things. That's his forte. So yeah, you know. All
Is that you or Kathy, the acting?
I don't know.
Because I would say it's a little bit of Dom in there, a little bit of
Yeah,
showman.
I did a bit of acting kind of stuff. when I
You
was
also
younger.
did modelling, didn't you?
Don't go
It's
from
a whole different life.
right now.
Not in
Watch
this
this
lifetime.
flag here. I'm gonna put it.
I'll put the photo up.
You have to do a good one. Now.
Okay, there's just the one that I think you've seen the one, the stud eyes of the camera. We'll get it. We'll put it up. But I think
I'm sure Josh has a couple of juicy ones you can get in contact with him.
we'll hit you up. We're gonna get some.
Send me a photo.
Yeah. Put it right on my daughter's head.
You got the one like the shirt undone halfway. And
I've got the whole kit off.
Cool.
You want that one?
Bareback on a
the whole
horse.
kit on that.
Yeah.
We're gonna blur.
You have the sensor.
This is turning very very quickly. I'm gonna say we'll call that. We've got time. Well, we've all got time, but for now I think I gotta run off.
Let everyone digest that information.
Digest that, because I think what we'll do with that one is we'll get little snippets. We'll put little snippets up, alright, and we'll put each snippet up that will rock a certain demographics boat.
Yeah.
Alright.
The last one being the parents.
Get them all fucking angry, and then we'll drop the parents one, and then we'll drop the thing, and then we're done from there.
All taken out of context.
Yeah. Contextually. So I want to say thank you both for coming.
Yes.
Yep.
Alright.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for all your
And
talking.
thanks to Adam for having Josh down here working with the boys and getting to see what the boys do in Adelaide and
Been
living
good.
the life of a basketballer for a week. And
Yeah.
you know, hopefully we might hear some more from development and see what happens.
Yeah, I'm sure Joey has some more information for you.
Yeah, be good. And
It is.
good to see you.
Yes, thank you.
Keep working away. It's great to see
Maybe
you guys doing
The
doing
next
what you love.
podcast we'll do it at your place. We'll come up for
We'll
a
come
session.
up. We'll come
We'll have
up.
a session. And
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's always been like, to me, there's always been like the like Rapunzel's tower. Like, what does Donald's house look like?
Yeah.
And I don't think I want to go there.
Yeah.
You'll ruin the image for me. You'll ruin the image for
Just
me.
above it.
Well, thank you guys for listening, for watching once again. Hopefully that was very informative. I think I still learned some more shit then, as I was
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
And we'll be back very soon with another episode. Maybe just Murph and I, and we'll just digest that. We'll break that down for,
Chat about
and
it.
then we'll go from there. Thank you very much, and we'll be back very shortly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.